basically a torrential downpour right next to the door.
So just try to think of it as like bonus relaxing nature sounds, you know?
Or
like,
you're just going to think there's someone peeing in the background.
Could be both.
Welcome to Feminist Frequency Radio. This is episode number 8. I'm your host, Anita Sarkeesian, and I'm joined by the rest of my ruffians, Ebony Astor.
Ruffians?
And Carolyn Pettit.
Hey, hey.
This is the show that asks you to be critical of the media you love, or alternatively, we are the feminist killjoys coming for your media, depending on your perspective. On today's show, we're going to check in with the latest pop culture news. We'll get into the glamour and protests at the 75th Annual Golden Globe Awards. We'll go into our thoughts on the latest season of Black Mirror, specifically the episode USS Callister, and then we'll finish the show by each sharing a little something in What's Your Deal?
Damn, that's a good title.
Oh, boy. And as always, exclusively for our fantastic Drip backers, we'll be recording a bonus segment. In this week's bonus segment, we're going to get into some reader mail. Some of it's delightful, some of it is dreadful. And before we get started, thank you for continuing to make this show happen every week. Everything Feminist Frequency does, including this very podcast, is listener, reader, and fan supported. So thank you for helping us stay on the air. If you want to access special perks and exclusive backer awards, check out our podcast community at d.rip/femfreak. Now on with the show. Hey, Carol.
Hey, Anita.
So we're here in SF.
Yeah.
And it's raining.
It's pouring rain right
which
now.
Which you might hear in the background, which is why I'm even bringing it up, because the way the studio is set up, that there's like basically a torrential downpour right next to the door.
So just try to think of it as like bonus relaxing nature sounds, you know?
Or
like,
you're just going to think there's someone peeing in the background.
Could be both.
Come on, you thought about it. Come on.
Well, I mean, SF, that is also a sound you sometimes hear in SF.
Yeah,
so
well, that's a way to bring it down, Carol.
Gosh. You're the one who brought it up.
That's true.
Does anybody
how's
care
the
about
weather
the
in Los Angeles?
Thank you. It is also raining in Southern California, giving the lie to that Tony song. It never rains in... I don't even know why I try.
Wow,
Tony. Don't act like you catch that reference. Don't act like you do. Anyway, it is raining, but it's not going to affect my recording because I record in a hollowed out rabbit warren that is 70 feet below ground near the lava level. So on with the show.
Near the lava level. I feel like that should be the name of something. Maybe that's the name of this podcast. Anyways, I was going to say that every time I complain that it's raining, I have to quickly check myself because that drought that we had a couple years ago was so severe that I'm like, no, rain is good. We want rain.
I mean, I'm generally I actually really enjoy the rain. I mean, to a limit, obviously. But yeah, it's just obviously when you're recording a podcast, it's not ideal. But I love being at home and listening to the sound of the rain or whatever. Like
As long as you don't have to like do anything.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So as long as the rain is timed to my schedule.
Yeah,
we're good.
exactly.
Yeah.
Carolyn is the
All right,
flaneur of the cast. Like, she likes walking in the rain, being melancholy. Why do I even try? She walks the city, Anita. She walks the city.
Do you know all of the dance moves of Singing in the Rain?
My God, are you? I mean,
of course you do. Why would I even ask that?
I can see them in my mind, but to do like doing them, no. I mean,
I think that should be. I think that should be our bonus. Is Carolyn recreating that dance scene?
Do you know that, like,
yeah.
He had a fever the day that they
I did know
that, and it's just like, I mean, Singing in the Rain, one of my all-time favorite movies. Pure joy, start to finish. If you've never seen it, do yourself a favor. It's beautiful.
We got to get Carolyn to do a little Singing in the Rain cast. All right, Carol, want to take us through the entertainment news of the week?
I'd love to. So the biggest entertainment news story that came out of last week is that Ebony has never seen Notting Hill.
I know, and
unacceptable.
The movie?
Yes.
Isn't that like a rom-com?
Broke the internet.
Yeah.
It's a rom-com.
The news broke the internet that Ebony has not seen Notting Hill.
That stars
Isn't
Hugh
that
Grant
Hugh?
and Julia
What's his
Roberts.
name?
So
Yeah,
I don't
Hugh
know
Grant.
why you would have thought I would have seen that movie. I don't know why you would have thought of all the things I'm going to queue up on Netflix.
Because it's
Hugh Grant.
Because it's a classic.
Okay,
No,
listeners, I'm just as confused as you are. I have no idea what this is about.
No, this is
tell you
just
what
a little joke that happened in our work Slack where Ebony revealed that she had not seen the film, and myself and our friend Julia kind of gave her a hard time.
I'm with you, Ebony. I've never seen it either. Because why would I?
But you don't get the business.
It's got some great moments.
As the boss of this ragtag circus, you don't get the business when you reveal that you've never seen this thing. Yeah. I mean, it all started because
I get it from you every week.
Yeah, but not in a public way. I do you the courtesy of doing it via WhatsApp. But then what do? Your shady ass screenshots it and shares it. So another thing we should probably talk about offline.
So anyway, all right. So the actual real entertainment news. Moving on. So we're going to bring this up again when we talk about the Golden Globes a bit later, but I want to give it its own mention. An initiative called Time's Up was established that it was created by a number of women who have power in Hollywood, actors and also like producers and showrunners, among them like Eva Longoria, America Ferrara, Shonda Rhimes, Reese Witherspoon, and on and on. And also, lawyers are involved. And this initiative, they released a statement when the announcement that Time's Up exists, that said in part, the struggle for women to break in, to rise up the ranks, and to simply be heard and acknowledged in male-dominated workplaces must end. Time's up on this impenetrable monopoly. And even though it's led largely by entertainment industry figures, they are conscientiously making an effort to make Time's Up not just about sexual harassment and power imbalances in Hollywood, but working class, to help working class women as well. There's a legal defense fund backed by $13 million in donations that is designed to help janitors, nurses, workers at farms, factories, restaurants, and hotels to protect those women from sexual misconduct, and so on. And so, obviously we don't yet know how successful or what impact Time's Up is going to have, but this is an initiative that exists that has come out of the kind of Hollywood reckoning that is attempting to create actual lasting structural change in not just in the entertainment industry, but in other industries as well.
Cool.
Yeah. All right.
I'm excited about it, and I think we'll dive more into that when we talk about the Golden Globes, because that was such a huge part of the award show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sunday, because today is Wednesday to our listeners.
That's right.
Wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey.
All right. So yeah, Time's Up. So now you know what it is when we start talking about it during the Golden Globe segment. The other thing I wanted to talk about is this video that went viral on Twitter of these young black men in like a movie theater lobby regarding a poster for Black Panther. And these men were saying things like white people get to feel like this all the time.
Yeah.
Which I think is such a simple and yet such a true statement. Like that's, it kind of cuts to the heart of it, of how much, representation matters. Like they were so moved. It was such a powerful experience just to see themselves kind of represented in this heroic, like positive way. Just like, there's always a million posters like that of white people. And so for them, it was this profound, like, rare, practically once in a lifetime experience. And I think, one of them said at one point during the video, I would love this country too. And,
right.
Yeah, and so like Eve Ewing, a sociologist and writer who may be better known on Twitter by the nickname Wikipedia Brown, but she kind of quote tweeted the video and she said, "I can't stop thinking about the quote, "I'd love this country" two-part. I truly wonder if people who see themselves represented in media all the time understand how deep this goes. And of course, most white people don't have any concept of it whatsoever because it's so normalized for us. It's like, it's just always been that way. We cannot begin to put ourselves outside of that experience and comprehend, like, to see how important it is, right?
Or it's always just intellectual, right? Like, even if you do understand privilege, like, it's intellectual. You're not feeling it in the same way. There's something about, like, the simplicity of the statement that I really value, where you hear it and you're like, oh, where we write essays and make videos and academic books on these topics, and it literally took 2 seconds and you're like, oh, shit. Right? Like, there's a lot of power to that.
Yeah. Well, as the Black member of staff, y'all already know that I've taken February 16th off for Black Panther Day. So, let that be my statement. I don't think people, no matter how plugged in you are to Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, I don't think people are truly understanding the level of passion the Black community has for this movie and how affirming it feels, and just how seen and how glorious it feels to see all that beautiful Blackness, on these posters and in the trailers. You ain't gonna be able to tell us shit. So Black History Month.
Yeah, we're gonna.
Yeah, it's gonna be lit all up and through here, led by yours truly.
I can't wait for all of the gifts,
girl. I can't even wait to walk you through this. I mean, I'm thinking back to how I had to, take you on a remedial course through why you can't eat everybody's potato salad. So this is gonna be truly interesting during the month of February.
Yeah. We're all so excited for it, and we're definitely going to dedicate a lot of the podcast to that movie for sure. Don't disappoint us, Black Panther. Or not, who cares about me, but don't disappoint everyone else. All right. Thank you for taking us through that entertainment news journey.
My pleasure.
Let's now seamlessly transition into the main segments.
Yeah.
The Golden Globes happened this week. It was the 75th annual Golden Globes. I have a question. Why do the Golden Globes exist?
Are you looking for an answer, or is that a rhetorical question? Because you're not going to get an answer on this podcast.
Because... so like there's different organizations that run these different shows and they're prestigious, but so the Golden Globes is like the major one that's TV and film, right? So the Emmys is TV and the Oscars is film. So why do the Golden Globes exist?
I think they exist because they fill the niche of, like, the Oscars are kind of like the stuffy, prestigious Hollywood award show. And so the Golden Globes get to be this kind of like, casual, like, we're all just gonna get drunk and hang out in a big room in a hotel and celebrate kind of thing. I mean, it's put on by the Hollywood Foreign Press, which whatever that is.
Yeah, right.
So it's I guess reporters who cover Hollywood from other countries get to vote on the awards or something. That's my understanding anyway. So it's not I don't think any awards show has true meaning. They have cultural impact, so they have meaning in that sense. We need to talk about the Oscars. We need to pay attention to them because they send a message to the world about what's quality, what's good, what's important. And if it's always stories about white people and whatever, that's a problem. But I don't believe that the Oscars intrinsically have any value.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Well, and so this year's Golden Globes is probably one of the most activist focused or the most protest focused award show of this caliber that I've ever seen. And it was an interesting experience. So we talked about, Carolyn mentioned Time's Up, that they organized everyone, specifically women, but everyone hopefully, to wear black. And I think everyone did. I didn't see anyone not wearing black, both men and women. And I was a little bit wary of this form of protest because I was sitting with someone watching a bit of the pre-show and she was like, why are they all wearing black? It wasn't clear until someone says something, right? But there was enough stuff in the award show with people on the red carpet, women, women were speaking up on the red carpet and during the acceptance speeches, that it was no matter what point you dropped in on the Golden Globes, you're gonna have heard something about Time's Up, Me Too, sexual harassment, like this has got to change kind of thing. And so, I feel a little bit better about it, but it's still a glitzy award show. It's still, there's some trepidation I have, but I'll take the fact that something happened as opposed to nothing happening.
I would say myself, I'm profoundly disappointed. I think it was actually like a colossal failure, and the one reason for that is the men. The men completely failed to stand up to say anything that challenged the status quo, to call attention to structural, sexual oppression or patriarchy or anything.
Yet no one said anything about specific. So. No one said anything specifically about the reckoning, the sexual harassment. No men at all.
Right.
There was one thing. Sterling K. Brown, who won Best Actor for This Is Us, said, I really did like his speech, even though it was unrelated to this topic, where he said that he plays all these sort of quote unquote gender blind roles where it's just a man.
Colorblind.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
It's okay.
But that this role that he played was specifically written to be a black man, and that it makes it harder to dismiss him and people who look like him. And I thought that was really powerful. But he was the only dude really that said anything strong enough other than I like my female coworkers.
Yeah, and I feel like there were men who really had an opportunity and almost, in my mind, an obligation to speak to these issues. Our friend Imran Siddiqui, he was totally on top of it last night, live tweeting during the Golden Globes, and he tweeted things like, Sam Rockwell wins for playing a racist cop and doesn't say anything about race, white supremacy. Not surprising, since the movie Three Billboards also has nothing of value to say about race. Imran in another tweet says, then there's this. Alexander Skarsgård, winning for playing a rapist in Big Little Lies tonight, spends zero time in his speech talking about Time's Up, sexual violence, patriarchy, whiteness. So, these men just...
And that whole crew... Am I remembering correctly?
It's Nicole Kidman, Reese Witherspoon.
Yeah. Oh my God. Why? Where? Give me the other name of the other woman on the show. Lena.
Zoe Kravitz.
Shailene Woodley.
No. Oh my God. Then I'm thinking of something else. Never mind.
Okay.
Cut all this out.
Okay.
Keep going.
I demand that this
they
be
were
kept
all
in.
It's fine. They were all I just remember them being all sisterhood and blah 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 and all this shit. And so he's did he not learn anything?
I mean, he basically said the kind of garden variety. It was great working with all these. I was a privilege to work with all these wonderful women, but he didn't. No man basically confronted men's role, men's complicity, men's in maintaining the sexist
except
status
Seth
quo.
Myers.
Really?
In his opening monologue.
Oh, Seth Myers. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was it. And
of course.
He kind of had to.
Right.
But yeah, so some of it is men suck. Right? They don't this is part of the problem where we keep talking about is there going to be some kind of systemic change? And this is a really good indication that men don't get it.
Right.
And so is it that the Time's Up crew that organized this needed to go and directly talk to men, needed to give them talking points, needed to not that it's on them, that it's not their responsibility for men to not be shitty, but if I
yes.
as an organizing tactic.
Yes.
But also the fact that men aren't doing it on their own.
Exactly.
Right? Aren't seeking out this advice, aren't seeking out I heard about this movement from all of these people that I work with and all these women I work with. Why don't I figure out how I can participate other than wearing a fucking pin and a black tux? Right? I was really upset about that as well.
Right. Because without men's participation and active participation and commitment to challenging and dismantling these power structures, I mean,
yeah.
It's not...
There was a tweet from Connie Wang, who is a writer at Refinery 29, and she wrote, my main gripe is that had Weinstein not been exposed, he would have been here, been in black, and would have been would have easily been considered a supporter. How many sexists and harassers are in Black tonight? And that was running through my head the whole time.
Yeah,
like I keep thinking about that, and that's I think very much related to this. Like, where the fuck were the men?
Right. I mean, and Zoe Kazan tweeted something along the lines of, "There's at least one man in the audience there wearing a Time's Up pin who is absolutely not an ally," you know? And so you know that there were shitty dudes who have done shitty things in there, just, you know, putting on the little pin, but who totally...
Oh!
Yes.
Laura Dern. She
Dern.
was in Big Little Lies. Okay, I wasn't losing it. She said, I urge all of you to not only support survivors, but to promote restorative justice.
Yes.
So that's what... I was thinking of Laura Dern because she's on that cast of those women who were like... just very much like sisterhood and blah, 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 blah. And I love that she mentioned restorative justice because we've been talking about how, like, it's not enough to just, like, bring down these sort of arcane prison... what are the words I'm looking for? Like the idea that we want the community to grow and flourish, and that we want people to learn from their mistakes, and we want people to be healed from harm.
Yes.
Not just punitive. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm looking for. Sorry, I just saw that in my notes and wanted to interrupt and be an asshole with that.
No,
not an
that's
asshole
good.
at all. I guess I have such a cynical take on the Globes. Okay, first of all, I hate award shows. I find them physically painful to watch. And so I only watched it because we had agreed as a team that we were going to discuss it. Otherwise, I would have just queued up, another episode of Star Trek last night, several episodes of Star Trek. But I truly believe that there are many men who are not putting their heads above the parapet because they are afraid that if they become sort of a visible sign of real allyship, shit's gonna get uncovered in their own history. I truly believe like there's more dudes who are in that room and throughout the industry who are like, yeah, I will wear the pen, but I can't, I don't want to draw attention to myself, which it's probably a poisonous, cynical take, but, at me if you want, I don't care. That's what I truly believe. I spent, the time that the show was on, that I was available to watch it, just like following the tweet Soul Globes, Pache, Issa Rae from last year's Golden Globes. I rooted for all the Black people when it was clear that like Get Out wasn't going to win anything. Mentally,
what the fuck was that?
Checked out,
so mad.
Yeah, but also just
that was fucked up.
It really was, and something that I don't even want to say. I hope that it's redressed in the Oscars because I don't think that kind of like industry validation is necessary for that movie. But it's not that it's necessary for the movie. I think it's necessary for sort of the community and our society to see, movies like that, or Moonlight, for instance, last year winning Best Picture, win these big awards. But to be honest, like I'm looking at my notes for the Golden Globes. I spent almost the entire award show trying to figure out how tall people are. And the basis of comparison was Al Roker, because I was watching the red carpet, and I don't know how tall Al Roker is, but Al Roker was standing next to Alexander Skarsgård, and I'm like, Skarsgård is like a smooth 2 Al Rokers tall. And so then that became my rating for everyone.
Those tall-ass Swedes.
Yeah, like Saoirse Ronan, 3 Al Rokers tall. John Boyega, surprisingly, 8 Al Rokers tall. It was crazy. I don't, whatever. I have,
Yeah.
I have so little, for someone who studies the media, someone who is obsessed with our media production, kind of deeply invested in the ways in which media and media producers both reflect and shape society, there's something about award shows that just puts me the fuck to sleep. So,
yeah.
I think before we move on, we do need to say a few words about Oprah's speech, because
I was bawling. She totally
oh,
got me
I'm not
stirred up, and I'm
not
like,
afraid to
not
say I
moved by
cried
this
too.
shit usually.
I straight up, I cried.
Yeah. All right. So do you want to talk about what? I can't.
Why don't you do it, Anita?
So Oprah won the Cecil B. or was honored with the Cecil B. DeMille Award.
Which Seth Meyers' joke at the beginning about that was hilarious. He's like, "What a tremendous honor for Cecil B.
That's right,
DeMille."
yeah.
It was a really good joke.
That's
yeah,
a good
it was
joke.
really good. I thought Seth Meyers like some of it just did not land, but some of it I thought was actually pretty good. Like it's a tough year to be hosting this show. But so Oprah won this award, and so she had 10 minutes to give an acceptance speech, and she's such You know, man, like, I don't really think much of Oprah. Like, I recognize that she's an important figure, like a very, very important cultural figure. But I don't, like, I don't think a ton about her in life in general. Yeah. But watching her give this speech, I was like, woman has presence. Like, she is such a wonderful public speaker. And I know everybody fucking knows this, but I'm just so used to, like, when she had her show, right, that I didn't really watch because I didn't care. And so I was watching it and I was like, oh, she's such a great speaker. She's so, like, her emotional energy was really, like, guarded when it needed to be guarded and expressive when it needed to be expressed. And so she comes up and she basically gave a political speech. Like, let's be real. And, like, all of the rumors about whether she's running for president and all that kind of crap. But so she starts out with a story about how she saw Sidney Poitier win an award when she was a little girl and how powerful that was. And she recognizes the power of her winning an award to little black girls today. And so then she said, so a couple of things I wanted to pull out specifically is she says, each of us in this room are celebrated because of the stories we tell, but this year we became the story. And I really liked that because that's what this is. That's what the media is about. It's about telling these stories. And our work is all about, like, what stories are being told and whose stories aren't being told. So she says, for too long, women have not been heard or believed if they dared to speak their truth to the power of those men. And then she does this really lovely dramatic pause and she says, but their time is up.
Yeah.
Their time is up. Time is up. And she just gets that audience fucking going and I'm bawling. Like, it was really profound and powerful. And I'm really glad she used her time, which she didn't have to do, but she definitely used her time to make it clear that this is an important cause to her. It's important to the future of Hollywood and culturally in general.
Yeah, and the ways in which people responded to that, both in, a kind of, heartening way. Like, first of all, Oprah schooled people last night in that speech. She said, you don't know the name of Reese Taylor, but you're going to learn tonight, okay? And she laid out for you why this woman she lived a life. She was a person. She was human. And you're not just going to, hear vague stories about, assault or, rape or degradation and kind of hand wave it away. You're going to learn this woman's name, and she's telling people about, Rosa Parks and reminding some people, instructing others, many others. Rosa Parks was just not some tired woman who decided she didn't want to get up. She was an NAACP organizer, like she was a strategist. She's like, no, women are telling their own stories. They have been. Now y'all are starting to listen. And it is important. This is incredibly powerful. But yeah, Oprah was there to serve last night. And one of the things, though, I have to say is this kind of gross response from many people. Like, oh, Oprah should run for president. First of all, we need a different model of leadership. Also, Black women are not here to do your work and carry your water. I am so tired of hearing this about it.
I'm actually really bothered by the president thing too. Mm-hmm. Like, that's not a thing that I'm looking forward to, but there's that energy is around, right? It's been around since Trump got elected. Last thing I want to just say too is that a lot of the actors brought activists in with them. So from all over, right? From all over different different types of work, including Michelle Williams brought Tarana Burke, who founded the Me Too movement. And so I think that was really nice, like bringing them into this space and saying their names on the red carpet, like trying to make sure that the media covers who these people are, even though the host didn't always do it. And as much as we're all a little bit cynical about award shows and about the celebrity, like, I very much believe that the profile of these events means that just being there and just saying these things is something, which is like at least, rich celebrities are recognizing that these are the spaces in which they need to disrupt at least a little bit. And, we can debate how the disruption happens. But
I want to know how people got hooked up with whom. Like,
I know, I do too.
I really want to know that because I want to know if it was Michelle Williams being like, you know what? I would like to bring this person, or whose idea was it, first of all? Who reached out to the activists? Who started the ball rolling? Were people like, oh, we've got 7 activists here, who's going to take whom? I'm the worst. Why am I so cynical? But I was just like, I want to know how that got figured out.
I was wondering that too. And like, ideally it would be great if like the actors were like, hey, I really find this movement and this person important and I want to bring them, but like I'm with you. Mm-hmm. Anyways, okay. I was trying to end on a nice note. Way to ruin it, Ebony.
I know, this is what I'm here for. That's my role on the show.
I know, it's
the
great.
Downer. The
it's
cooler.
Great. All right. So let's move into Black Mirror and USS Callister.
Yeah.
So, okay. I just have to give a little preface about my Black Mirror life.
Okay.
I don't like the show, and
tell.
I don't watch it. I don't like the show, and I don't watch it. I watched, when it first came out, I watched the first, 3 episodes of the first season, and I fucking hated it, which was super bizarre because, I am wicked cynical, and I'm interested in, the cynicism of tech and all this stuff, but I thought it was so painfully cynical in a way that I just can't get down with. So I gave up and I stopped watching it. There was no value to me. It made me really uncomfortable. And not because it was fucking pigs. It was because it just it's the worst of the worst with nothing for me to hold on to.
Right.
So I only watch the show when lots of people are like, this one episode is the episode you need to watch. So last year, 2 years ago was San Junipero, which is an amazing episode. Shout out to Cameron from *Halt and Catch Fire* who was in it. That was what I wish the show could have more of. Then USS Callister came around and everyone's like, you got to watch this. So I did. And holy moly, was that an episode?
Yes.
So let me give people a little a summary of the plot setup before we get into that.
Yeah, please.
So it's Jesse Plemons, who people may know from Friday Night Lights.
What up, Landry? It was so hard watching Landry be this guy.
Yeah, see, I've seen him on Breaking Bad, where he's a fucking terror. So I already know him as a force of evil.
Landry forever.
But so he plays this guy named Robert Daly. He's the chief technical officer at this big sort of online gaming company, and he designed the code and everything. He's he's a coding genius. He's very shy, awkward, and what he does when he goes home at night is he plays so the game is star. It's basically playing Star Trek, right? And it's literally kind of inspired by, Landry. Daly is a huge fan of this old TV show called Space Fleet, which is obviously modeled on Star Trek. And so when he goes home, rather than playing the online game with all these other players, he has his own little private kind of server or private version of the game where he's a captain and all the people on the crew they look like people that he works with.
Oh, throw up a spoiler alert right now because
Okay.
we're going to dive into the whole episode.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Darth Vader is Luke's father.
So, at first you think, oh, they're just game NPCs, game characters who look like the people that he works with. But the horrifying, the nightmare kind of twist of the game is that what he does is he takes DNA or something from the people that he works with whenever they slight him, even in the slightest way, oh, I brought him the wrong sandwich once or whatever. He finds DNA of theirs and basically makes a copy of them who has all their memories, feelings, who is basically them, a copy of them, and kind of imprisons them in the game where he rules as a tyrant god, but positions himself as the heroic captain of this ship.
So there's an interesting, the episode was so well written and timed that the episode starts with them on the ship, right? And you're kind of oh my God, this is kind of funny in this weird way. And you think that it's a dream because it cuts to him in his office, right? And then you think, when it goes back, you're oh, it's a simulation that he's taken all these people in. And then you realize that it's actual torture.
Yes.
Right? And so they gradually make you more and more horrified along the way. And I thought that that creative choice, that narrative choice was really powerful.
Yeah, and you one thing I started to wonder is how did Daly become this way? Because he's like obviously a wealthy, successful white man, but he has such a sense of entitlement that it seems to me that anything that isn't perfect in his life, anything that doesn't go right, he then feels like he's justified in just completely torturing those people. And I kind of started thinking, in a way, it seems to me probably this is somebody who has played probably way too many power fantasy video games throughout his entire life, and has lost himself in those worlds. So he's so incredibly socially awkward. He doesn't know how to form real connections with people, but also he expects everything to revolve around him. So I felt like there was kind of a subtle commentary there about power fantasies and video games as well.
Yeah, I was a little concerned that that the show was going to allow us to see Daly as a sympathetic character for just a beat too long. The fear was that, we see, him be kind of dismissed and degraded or slighted by his boss / maybe former friend, by women that he's interested in, by coworkers, etc. And there's always the fear that narratives of this type wind up giving you the impression that, if only those people had been nice to him, they wouldn't be receiving the treatment they're now receiving. So that they're somehow culpable for this psychotic behavior on his part, right? So I was very worried that was going to happen. But the show spends, comparatively little time. It sets up, what's going on. But you realize pretty quickly that there's something going on here. And it really, if you're a Star Trek fan, Callister is a super satisfying episode because it really highlights and gives lie to the ways in which the Barclay episodes on Next Generation were fucked up. The fact that Barclay, who is a very similar figure, right? This tech genius to Daly in this episode, very socially awkward, doesn't know how to interact with people, kind of romantically frustrated. The fact that he then constructs these alternate worlds in which men, fear him and women love him on the holodeck and peoples it with, his fellow crew members, that's fucked up. It's not banal. It's not innocuous. It's not funny. Those are horrifying episodes. And so I loved that, this episode kind of played with that. But I also love just the purely playful touches at the beginning where Jesse Plemons does just a note for note A+ Captain Kirk impression, from just the bloviating, the hair, the fact that it looks like he's wearing a girdle in, his uniform. It was I'm kissing my fingers. It was so perfect.
Yeah, and I think the set design and everything of both the tech world and the ship was really and the planet where they end up on, just all of it I thought was done really well. There was I was saying they captured the sort of bullshit tech environment really well too, where there's a moment where what's his face, the other co-creator says, people call it a carefree environment. I call it careful. And you're like, of course, someone would absolutely say that or has said that, right? That was got to be lifted. So what's her name? Nanette Cole. She basically becomes the protagonist. She blackmails herself with revenge porn, non-consensual nudity. And that's what Black Mirror does. That's the shit. This episode had all of the pieces that make me really uncomfortable watching the show, except the ending wasn't as cynical, right? And so that whole storyline of doing that to herself, I only watched the episode yesterday, so I'm still grappling with what that means and how I feel about that that kind of that kind of media representation of exploitation. And then the whole time I'm worried that well, they're planning on dying, and so she's going to think this happened and get in the real life, she's going to get no resolution or no why, or if she's ever going to be able to feel comfortable or safe again, which you never can because the things are constantly reproducible. So I'm wondering, okay, the end of the episode, they find out that they don't die. They just get put into the update. So I love that their clothes transforms, which makes me think that the studio itself is conscious of outfits and clothing, right? Like that the game studio is more advanced than Daly himself.
Right.
Right. And that whatever. So there's this funny moment where they're like, holy shit, we're just like in the game. Like we can do whatever we want.
Until they run up against that dude, you know?
Yes!
That other player.
It was so good.
Yeah.
Like Gamer 691 or whatever, who was like, give me your shit.
Yeah, like that's to me is like, I mean, obviously it's way infinitely better than the situation they were in previously, but you're stuck in like what a kind of, to me, nightmare.
Yeah.
To be
Yeah.
stuck in a beautiful cosmic, universe to explore planets everywhere, whatever. But all the other people you're probably going to meet and interact
Are
with
fucking chuckleheads.
are fucking gamers.
Yes.
I loved that.
Yeah.
Like that, I really appreciated that. Like, yeah, cool, you get this happy ending, but not really, because this is actually the reality. Like, this is the current today reality, not our extrapolated, like, nightmare reality. But what I'm hoping in my fantasy world is that because they're now connected online, that they can reach out to her and explain what happened. But then how much would that fuck you up to be like, there's literally a clone of me in this digital space, and what does that mean? Like, I want to see more. Like, I want this to be a bigger story.
I thought it was weird because they direct her to go into Daly's apartment and to his fridge and get all the things, and they're all labeled with people's names.
Yeah, so isn't she curious?
Like, she should at least, that should at least provoke some curiosity in her, but they don't make a thing out of it.
And also,
they
like,
probably didn't have time.
I know.
Right,
but-
and also, like, at some point, Daly will die in his chair, right? And there's going to be, I think we might be reading too much into the ending, but at some point, there's going to be questions asked, right? When
he doesn't show up.
In my mind, what happens is, like, Packer and, who is it, Dudai, like, all the other, like, brown people who are crew members are like, okay, well, we're peacing out now that we're free to go our own way, and we're going to captain our own ships. One of the things that I loved about, like, the setup of the show was it shows you, like, the kind of incidental multiculturalism of a lot of these future worlds that are nevertheless crewed by white people. Or not crewed, but captained by white people, right? So you have, like, these kind of token nods to diversity, and life in infinite combinations. But nevertheless, it's still, like, the white dude giving the commands, And so I so wanted Packer to be like, all right, now that we're out of here, I'm going to go do my own thing and peace out.
Well, and this always there's something like, oh, she becomes captain, like she solved the problem, and like, you are rooting for her, but I'm always like, but why does there have to be a captain? Like, I'm always like, why can't it be non-hierarchical? Why can't they work like, on a horizontal organization structure or whatever? But how did you feel about how Daly ends up? Like, how did you feel about that resolution of him just being like stuck forever until he dies?
It was horrifying. It was very much a, I have no mouth, but I must scream kind of like body horror moment for me. And yet he was so awful and appalling as a character that, like, most of my humanity had dripped away by that point. And I was like, fuck that guy. Does that make me a horrible person, Anita? Yes, that's okay.
No,
I own it.
I think that's most people's reaction. It wasn't entirely mine, but
yeah, I definitely didn't want him to have a redemption arc or anything like that. I didn't want that.
There's a part of me, I agree. Like, I think that I like this thing as a whole, and I think it's fine. There's that part of me, that restorative justice part of me, or like a transformative justice part of me, that's like. But like eye for an eye kind of thing. Like, I have a hard time with it. And so I kept being like, no, but if I was those people who had just been tortured this whole, like, for who knows how long, like, that would make sense to what they were doing. Right. And like, it's not like they had a lot of options in terms of how to get out of it. Right. Like, there's all these costs. But to me, I'm like, I want more of this story, right? Like, I really want this to be extrapolated into a mini-series, because I think there's so much fascinating shit. Like, can they call out and, like, report to the world that this thing happened, and then someone goes and finds him, and then, like, there are consequences for his behavior, and, like, some kind of not redemption, but some kind of, like, justice that is done in this case. So I obviously there's so much in this, and I want so much more, and I'm pleased I'm pleased with it, even though I'm so tense just talking about it. It was excruciating.
Can we talk about the moment when it's revealed that the crew members don't have genitals? Because that was such a weird thing, and of everything that happened in the episode, for some reason, that's the one part that felt most kind of tonally off to me, because I just thought there's no way that this guy Daly, being the kind of person that he is, would take refuge in a, the term they use is like a kind of wholesome bubble universe, ruled with an iron fist by an asshole god. I just thought there's no way that there's no like element of, sexual degradation in his fantasy world. I don't know. It just felt like,
I guess to me it seemed like his devotion to like the authenticity of Space Fleet, the TV show, was so deep, like so psychotically deep that, and presumably, obviously that must have been like a very sexless show, like where there's kissing but no tongue, whatever. Right. Like, I think it's almost like his loyalty to Space Fleet like overrides his whatever other impulses he may have. Like that's how like weirdly intertwined his identity is with that show. I feel like I have two thoughts about this, because I felt weird about it as well. So I feel like either if you're going to justify it in some ways, that like it was so horrifying as it is that adding sexual assault to it might have just been a step too far, and that might have just been a choice by the writers to do that. Although you're right, it is justified in terms of the fact that he's like, no, we have to follow all the principles, even though he doesn't follow any of the principles, right? To me, it felt a little bit like how we desexualize and how we reduce, like how we say online harassment is just boys in their basements, or like, mouth breathers, and like all of these sort of like dehumanizing ways to talk about men and boys, that like the stereotypes of who these people are in terms of being disaffected. And so part of it to me felt like it was a jab at him and a jab at the stereotype a little bit. In a way that I'm having a hard time really pinning down. No, me too. I only saw the episode a couple of days ago, so I'm still thinking through it. But I just know that that's like the image of the science officer, the kind of the feckless, second in command, the guy who's his boss in real life. Like the image of him dropping trow and, having like that Ken doll body just, stuck with me. And I'm still working through what that meant. And it may be that I'm mapping Daly as a character onto, various real life dudes and the kind of violent sexual fantasies they express that, he doesn't express. So it may be inappropriate for me, but I just thought, well, for one thing, when Michaela Cole, who is amazing, like that girl needs to be getting, all the jobs, and I can't wait for Chewing Gum season 3, whenever that is going to appear. But like when she says, okay, well, it's gross, we have to kiss him, but at least there's no tongues and it can't go any further, as if, okay, well, it doesn't get any worse than this. But I wanted there to be another beat there to say like, but this is bad enough, like this, it doesn't. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I think for the most part,
we're supposed to feel that way as the audience. Yeah. Like she's been so beaten down by the parameters of this space that. But I do. Right. I also. We can talk about this forever. Can I just say one last thing? I loved how so much of Daly's bullying, like his need to feel powerful, was performative for other men. It was about, being recognized as like the alpha male in front of other men. And so, although he was, enacting these kind of like romantic moments with the various female members of the crew, for the most part, it was about humiliating other men. I just thought that was a really, interesting and cogent kind of point. So anyways, that's all I got to talk about that. No, like this episode is so rich. I almost feel like we could have spent a whole hour on just unpacking this, if not more. I'm gonna be thinking about this show for a episode for a long time. Hang on a second. I have a call coming in.
Hey Ebony, this is your producer Phil, and I'm calling because I heard that you guys have a segment that you need a theme for.
Yo, you are correct. You might have heard Anita doesn't like the segment title. That's incorrect. She loves the segment title. She loves it.
What's the name of this segment title?
What's your deal?
What's your deal?
What's your deal?
What's your deal?
What's your deal? What's your deal? What's your deal? What's your deal?
So, Carolyn.
Yes.
What's your deal this week?
My deal is San Junipero. So
Cool.
Yeah. So I'd never watched any episodes of Black Mirror before this assignment came along, and I thought, well, I've heard so much about San Junipero.
God, it's so up your alley. I can't believe you hadn't seen it.
I know. I was like, oh my God, this is so great. Yeah. So, and I think there's such an interesting contrast in a way between San Junipero and USS Callister, because USS Callister is like the kind of absolute nightmare online game scenario and the kind of power fantasy, taken to the extreme. And San Junipero is like the most kind of optimistic and like beautiful vision of what's possible, of like, online worlds. Yeah. And I guess like I just found it so resonant because the main character in San Junipero, played by Mackenzie Davis, who's fantastic, Cameron from *Halt and Catch Fire*, her name is Yorkie, and there's in the world of San Junipero, she's like 30-ish, whatever. She's like she's able-bodied. She's able to do all these things, but you learn that in real life she's been like I think maybe in a coma for her entire adult life. And I just felt like how great it would be to have a world like that where you can kind of live the life that maybe you actually were in some ways denied, where a place where I guess for me as like a trans person, like the thought is, oh, how nice it would be to have a world where you can go and like really be seen as quote unquote yourself and be like accepted and perceived that way and maybe even loved that way. I just thought it was such a beautiful, optimistic vision. And so the production design's so great with all the kind of 80s details as they kind of go to different years in the 80s and everything. Anyway, I just loved it.
Nice. I highly recommend it. It's really, really good. Ebony, what's your deal this week?
Well, my deal for real, like if I'm being honest, it's Happy Valley and Ripper Street again. Because seriously, you guys, I have a crime drama problem, and I probably need to talk to somebody about it, but this is not the time or the place. But my for real deal this week is playlists. I have become obsessed with listening to other folks' playlists. Like I'm always looking for new music to, either rock out to or forget my troubles to or whatever. But also, I just find it so interesting to peek into someone else's kind of persona at any given moment in time. And there's some people just putting out such amazing, thoughtful, like seamless playlists. And I'm nowhere near that good, but I'm really loving. So, okay, I always joke about how we have, 3 listeners on the podcast. I didn't say it's the same 3 listeners week by week. It might be 3 different people, but those 3 people have been hitting me up with their playlist, their Spotify playlist, and it has been bomb. I've been loving it. And so I don't know, my deal this week is just that kind of sharing, honest, sincere sharing of like, these things make me happy or these things make me feel. So much of what I consume online just feels like at a tremendous remove, or it kind of saps my small capability for, human emotion and joy. And so to have someone be like, this song just gets me pumped, and I listen to it 17 times on loop in the morning, and it just makes me feel like I can conquer the world. I'm loving that. So I know a few of you know that like I've been trying to get the rest of the FemFreak staff to put together Spotify playlists of their own on whatever theme and whatever genre mix they want, and hopefully I can get them to do this. Yeah. I would love to see like what Carolyn, Anita, Ashley put together. So that's my deal this week. Spotify playlist. Hit me up at Ebony Aster. Let me know what you're listening to.
Yeah, I'm super down with that idea, and I was thinking about it too and completely forgot. So I'm glad you brought it up because, like, you know, music is a huge part of all of our lives, and like, you know, I'm constantly looking for new music, but we don't talk about it here, and we don't integrate like music as a part of pop culture, which is it is. So, you know, maybe that is part of our collective Feminist Frequency resolution for 2018 is to integrate music and
I'm with it.
Criticism and just enjoyment into our work more.
I'm with it.
My deal this week is a little bit sad. A intellectual writer, thinker who who had a really huge impact on my life died on Christmas Eve. He was 71, so he's pretty young, actually. His name was Allan G. Johnson, and I I don't even know what to say because it feels weird that it's impacting me as much as it has, but his work was absolutely foundational to me understanding privilege and oppression. Like, there are not a lot of moments in my life that I can say, like, my life has completely changed and my worldview has completely changed and everything is different. And his, like, honest, and I've always felt this tension that a white, straight, cis man has been such a huge impact on me in this particular arena. And obviously not the only one, but his work specifically explaining out what a system is, what privilege is, what oppression is in all of these spheres of race and gender and disability and class and on and on. He was able to distill it down, even though he's an academic, distill it down into the most accessible language and the most accessible analogies that the very first time I heard a speech from him was just a friend saying, hey, listen to this thing. I was immediately like, holy shit, this is the piece that I've been missing in my activism. Mm-hmm. This is the piece that I got yelled at for and didn't understand when I would get up and say stupid crap at like meetings when I was younger because I didn't get systems. Mm-hmm. It sparked my interest and my desire to learn more. And I'm like, him and Bell Hooks are the two people I credit the most with why Feminist Frequency exists, why I do what I do. So it was really sad to hear that he had passed. And, you know, I had known him. I'd never met him personally, but I did this. So I used to do web design. That was what I did before Feminist Frequency. And I used to reach out to activists that I admired and ask them if I could redesign their websites because they were ugly and I hated them. And his specifically, like, I kept wanting to share this one video that he had where he uses the game Monopoly as an analogy to explain how people interact with systems and how systems interact with people. And so I was like, yo, can I like make you a new website? Because it's really ugly. And selfishly, I want to share this with people, but they're not going to take it seriously if your site sucks. And he said yes. And so that's how I met him. And, you know, throughout the years, we had chatted a little bit. I remember asking his advice on some trope scripts, just really, really thoughtful and generous with his time. And he asked me to... The Gender Knot: Unraveling Our Patriarchal Legacy is the book that I recommend to everyone every time someone wants to start learning about this stuff. And he asked me to blurb it, and I felt so honored to be able to do that. So I kind of want to read it because I think it's what I had said when I was less emotional is so much more succinct. The Gender Knot is a book that never leaves my side, intellectually at least. Since I was first introduced to Allan Johnson's work, this text has served as a faithful companion to my personal and professional growth. Johnson lays out how patriarchy as a social system interacts with all of us in one of the most accessibly written books on the topic. He proficiently explains how this damaging system hurts people of all genders and gently guides us away from reactionary feelings of guilt and towards those of social responsibility. The Gender Knot is an invaluable and timeless resource for everyone who cares about gender equality. I cannot recommend his work enough. He also started writing fiction a little bit later in life, which his first novel, The First Thing and the Last, is just gut-wrenchingly brilliant. It is about surviving domestic violence. It is brutal, and it is honest, and it is compassionate. And so I highly recommend checking out his whole library of work. I wrote a little bit more about this on our website, so I will link that in the info if you want to read my little, in remembrance of. So rest in peace. All right. I guess I now have to wrap.
I know.
Now I need to personally shift out of that.
It reminds me of like at the Golden Globes after Oprah's speech, then like Ron Howard and Natalie Portman come out to present some award, and Ron Howard is like, well, now back to this.
Yeah.
Which
and we didn't say that Natalie Portman did a really good thing there where she said the all male directors, which was another one of those really succinct moments that's super powerful.
And if you look at there's some website did a thing, I think Vulture, I think it's Vulture, where it shows like the video, like little gifs of each nominee's reaction after that, and you can tell they all look a little sheepish, like a little
yeah.
That actually was I loved that moment because it was a moment of like actual disruption, as someone on Twitter pointed out. That's, like, of the activism that was on display, like the moments that were actually disruptive were the most effective. So that, and like Deborah Messing on the red carpet being interviewed by E, and then saying so like good. Hey, didn't know that E paid its female co-host less, like those moments of making people actually uncomfortable. There's nothing wrong with wearing a black dress or a Me Too pen, but actually disrupting things much more, kind of satisfying and effective.
Yeah, totally.
And effective.
Totally agree. All right, that's our show. Clearly, we could talk forever about all of these topics. You can catch us back here every single Wednesday. Once again, a big thanks to our Drip backers. Drip is Kickstarter's brand new subscription-based crowdfunding platform. We are listener-supported, and every dollar you contribute goes directly to producing this podcast. By pitching in, you're joining the Feminist Frequency community. We've got some great rewards for you, so head over to d.rip/femfreak and join us. If you like this show, we have a small favor to ask. Please leave us a little review on iTunes or wherever you're listening to this podcast. It really helps us spread the word about our show. And, tell all of your friends over dinner, on Twitter, at the ballpark, wherever you hang out with your friends. The ballpark. Whatever.
Girl, you don't know anybody who goes to the ballpark.
Is basketball season?
Okay.
I do know people who go to the ballpark.
Bye.
Don't challenge me.
Bye.
Come on. Quick note: Ebony and I's Star Trek Discovery recap podcast is back.
Oh.
You can watch. You can listen to our disastrous first episode.
Oh my God! Fumbling
which is
towards
live.
ecstasy. Yes.
So you can find that, all of our work and other podcasts at feministfrequency.com. And you can find each of us on Twitter. Carolyn, where are you at?
I'm at Carolyn Michelle.
Ebony?
Viola Davis.
Ah,
girl, her fro
Fine.
last night.
No, she's great. I just always think that you're like gonna send harassment to her when you say these things. Anyways, you can find Ebony at Ebony Aster.
Oh, if someone tries to come for my auntie Viola Davis, it's gonna be on. No, don't even put that out there in the universe. Nope,
it's great. So send us all of your love on Twitter at these places. I'm at Anita Sarkeesian. Our producer is Phil Circus, who also composed our theme music.
What's hilarious is how carefully Anita said the word composed, because she almost always says confused.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
All right. We'll see you all next week. Bye.
Bye.